videos. One of them was extremely funny, where you explained how you can tell by the sound of the voices of people who they are. But in reality, you are a scientist. And in the meantime, however, you have delved deeply into spirituality. How do you get from science to spirituality? Is there a connection? But first of all, what is it? What kind of science did you delve into first?
No, it's very easy to cross over from one to the other when you realize that it is one and the same, because we live in one reality that is, per definition, coherent.
Uh-huh.
And everything that is spiritual experience has a scientific explanation. And science, if it's not evolving to the point where it can understand spirituality, it's incomplete. Very simple. I mean, science comes by I define the area of research. And if you define your area small, you cancel things out. I actually I had the beautiful opportunity to do what used to be called Studium Generales in Germany, kind of crisscrossing through all sorts of fields. I started with mineralogy, geology, got a little bit bored because it was not scientific enough, added physics and math to it until I realized that my soul was starving. And then I decided it would be beautiful to become a journalist or a writer, and did an education as a normal journalist until I collided with the system and realized that nobody is allowed to write any truth anywhere. So I got interested in how the system works and finally graduated in media science to find the slot where you can basically apply your right to free speech in these weird times. And that was kind of the education part. And job-wise, for a little while, I worked as a producer and script doctor for feature film production companies. And then I got stuck on a documentary film project on free energy and delved into free energy research. Kind of a good position as a filmmaker, journalist. I could access all the labs in Europe, and the scientists would talk freely. So because they wanted to become famous and known and maybe get some financial resources from somewhere. So it was not like that fear that I could steal ideas. And so after a while, I could accumulate enough knowledge to give nice comments to the teams. Kind of, if you see something in a lab and then someone else is working on a problem, of course you cannot directly transfer knowledge. It would be stealing, like feared by them, but you can ask the right questions until problems are solved. So they started to love me also as an innovator. And then it was, I don't know, 2010, I realized that it's not that difficult to find technical solutions to free energy, but it's extremely difficult to survive in a field that is run by scarcity. It's like free energy gives unlimited abundance. And if you introduce a little island of abundance into an economy that is scarcity based, you have a matter antimatter reaction. Everything explodes, and you need to get your ass out of there before it kicks you. So
You make yourself a lot of enemies, obviously, because those who have profited from the probably engineered scarcity, all of a sudden they see that they're
yeah,
being threatened, right? Hmm.
yeah. It's not even that kind of. Humans are so vulnerable. Even if you found a company, you bring a technological concept. Like I was in 2 startups that wanted to transform car engines to run on water. to a certain percentage. Saving 30%, 60%, up to 70% was doable technically. And it was just enough to trigger a little bit greed among the employees of those companies to make them self-destroy from inside out.
Wow.
So I realized this is a spiritual problem. You cannot, if you don't crack that problem in the psychology of mankind, we will run on scarcity for another decade or century or millennium. So I said, okay, I can completely skip the scientific part, and I need to have a look at other problems, psychology. I had a period where I kind of had the opportunity to go into weather engineering, worked with Majid Abdelaziz with the Desert Greening Project in Algeria, doing the PR for him in Germany, Northern Europe. Doing that, I ended up in Norway, working in the field of electrosensitivity, doing the Klinghardt educations in Scandinavia. Not doing them, but cooking for them actually was my job. But I made friends with the doctors that were running the show.
Dietrich Klinghardt,
Yes,
richtig?
yes, yes. And there actually, for the first time, I got confronted with the collateral damage done by the transhumanist technologies that are viral, that are in the environment. We did a lot of environmental monitoring over there. We collided with definitely artificial particles that were absolutely high-tech, A, B, absolutely parts of self-assembling nanomachines. And once you start to understand that concepts of transhumanism, how to create interfaces between radio frequencies and consciousness by inserting components that self-assemble to working units inside your body, and you find those components in the rain, in the food chain, wherever, in toxins used in agriculture, it all adds up to a beautiful concept. Not beautiful in the sense of good, but amazingly complex and intelligent made.
So it's not just in, it is also through what many people call chemtrails. It's poisoning the our ground, the earth, poisoning the food.
Yeah,
The
I could
waters,
give you
all
kind
for
of
that same purpose.
the two main examples. Look at neuronal nanobots. They are composed of a piezo crystal, which is barium strontium titanate. This comes from geoengineering. This is kind of in flame pyrolysis produced in jet engines for military purposes. It's a beautiful, tiny little piezo crystal. This is the core of a artificial neuronal knot that is sensitive to microwave radiation. And then basically you have the barium atoms on the surface of the crystal, and then you need three components. You need mercury. This is coming in by seafood and amalgam fillings. You need, and this is stripping the nerve naked. It's dissolving the tubulin, the protective layer around the nerve. Then the nerve, the inside part, gets in touch with your interstitial liquids, and there we need organophosphates that either come from pesticides or from jet engines in flights, because the lubrication of the turbines, the oil has an additive that has organophosphates, and the same turbine is responsible to compress the cabin air. And if it's getting a little bit older, it's leaky, and those organophosphates are in the cabin air. So if you fly a lot, you've got there a beautiful source of organophosphates, and they chelate the copper from the nerve. Then you have excess barium from the geoengineering that is replacing the copper when the nerve is restructuring itself. So what you get basically is a nerve that is composed of protein, prion, barium, protein, prion, barium chains, ending up on the barium on one of the piezo crystals. And that thing is kind of embedded in ferritin to seal it and protect it from outside. And then you have one neuronal knot that is connected to your nervous system with a core that is sensitive to microwave radiation, that a crystal that is sending out kind of the text that is running through your nerve and is capable of also pulling in an artificial signal, forming a read-write unit. Kind of you can detect what is this human experiencing on the nervous level, and you can record what's happening in him through the antenna system that is picking up his signal. And then you can basically record the signal and send the same signal out to another human, and he will experience exactly the same. It's a read-write unit, like a tape recorder or a record player. Use the same device for reading and writing, and you get a very precise copy of the original. This is kind of one of the two early stages of transhumanism. The other one is connected to this weird disease called morgellons. It dates back to 82, 83, when Bell Labs developed quantum dot dyes, heavy metal chemistry that is capable of up-converting microwaves to visible light and down-converting visible light to microwaves. And they tried to inject it into beings to have that transformation happening inside the body. But it was too toxic, so they were looking for a method to encapsulate it in a way that it's not toxic anymore. And they found this beautiful fungus that is absorbing heavy metals, even sorted by colors. Some of the fibers of the mycelium is turning red, some of it is turning blue. So it sorts by color. So you can put the quantum dot dyes into the food chain, infect people with the fungus, and then it grows inside the body, absorbs the quantum dot dyes, and then you have inside the flesh, inside the muscles, inside the blood, kind of little antenna systems that pick up a microwave signal and communicate with the cells with biophoton exchange. And then you have the actually consciousness part, not the nerve part of consciousness, which is in the physicality electric, but the other part that is real consciousness, that is light-based, covering the emotions as well. And if you have both signals and you overlap them, you get a perfect picture of the consciousness of a non-heart-based human. And this is something you can read out and write in. So this is what we discovered back in 2012, 13, about transhumanist technologies that are actually already out there, and everyone is infested with it to a degree. Not everyone has a heavy morgellon infection with overgrowth, but it's enough to have, like, I don't know, 1,000 fibers distributed in your body. It gives them a full picture of what you feel.
What do they want to do with that?
I can give you the, if you like, the American infrastructure. Or I can give you this. It differs a bit from the German version, but I think it's interesting. If you do it in English, it's mostly for the American audience. They should know. It started actually in the US Navy. They had a beautiful opportunity to apply 3D battlefield monitoring over the oceans. And this is possible to have a 3D radar picture because of the salinity of the air. It makes the air conductive. You have salt crystals distributed everywhere, and they basically make a particulate plasma in the air. And this quality of particulate chargeable plasma in the air is what is needed as a reflective background to run 3D radar systems. And then you had this kind of thing going between the normal US military and the Navy, because of the Navy, they had this beautiful tool. And the ones who wanted to defend the mainland had to stick to their stupid 2D radar pictures. So they found a method to insert layers of particulate plasmas by applying flame pyrolysis in the jet engines of airplanes, producing nanocrystals that would fulfill the role of the salinity in the air, plus some extra skills that you can engineer into it. And this is actually known as chemtrails. It used to be a completely undiscussed normal topic, I remember there was one script from one of the Air Force academies, the script for the chemtrail class, where you were learning the entire chemistry of how to assemble which crystal. And so it was not even discussed in the early stage as something relevant for the public. It just came when people started to realize that the contrails stopped disappearing after a while. Then it became a public topic, and then they invented this stupid game of, oh, is it a chemtrail? Is it a contrail? You know, discussing something you can't solve, which is a good trap for the public. So that was kind of me in 2012 writing a paper with the title "The Chemistry in Contrails" to put an end to the discussion, make some environmental analysis, and finding out what actually is in the jet fuel that ends up as crystals and excess substances that remain in the chemical form in a bioavailable state so that it can be measured. This is kind of things that completely go wrong. The crystals are not soluble in acids. They survive for eternity as a crystal, so they can't be measured by any standard measuring method and stay completely undetected. The only thing they measure when they say we have a lot of barium and strontium and titanium in the rain samples is the excess chemistry that failed to turn itself, which is only like 10% of the total amount. So this is kind of the research we did back then. Ending up with understanding the two main transhumanist technologies to create an interface. Oh, okay, I wanted to close the loop. The Navy technology with the rest of the US military. So they started to spray, and that was for military purposes first. Then the intelligence community got interested, because if you can put a US warplane on a radar and predict the possible moves of a Russian pilot, you could possibly also put a US citizen on the radar and predict what he's going to do, because this is what they did with the 3D radar. They had programs monitoring combat situations, replacing every American pilot and every Russian pilot in a simulation with avatar in the computer program that was predicting the most likely behavior of the pilot to get a complex battlefield simulation that could be calculated into the future to see possible outcomes of the combat situation. And when you apply this on the general population and you have the transhumanist technologies in place to read out what people feel and think, you can write those avatars in a way that they are self-learning algorithms. They predict what is Rainer Fulmich going to think next. He's going to think, oh, these bastards. And then he's reading your mind and you think, oh, how intelligently made. So algorithm realizes I was wrong with my prediction. I need to adopt the algorithm until it 100% fits to the real Rainer Fulmich. And if the simulation is perfect, you can simply switch the direction of the read-write unit. You can make the avatar take over the control on the human. And then you can basically intentionally insert sequences that the human is supposed to feel or think, and he will perceive it as his free will without realizing that he's been taken over. And this is basically the end goal of the entire program. It's called Sensor Spectrum Efficient National Radar Surveillance. No. Spectrum Efficient Surveillance. Oh, wait. I have to type it down. Sorry. Sensor Spectrum Efficient National Surveillance Radar. This is it.
Okay.
It's run with a Gemini radar chip produced by Raytheon that is in every 5G antenna. And it supplies basically a transparent battlefield manipulation of urban areas, looking into every single room of every single house, displaying every human with his ID and social security number, and knowing what he thinks and what he feels.
How far have they come?
The last data I got from a whistleblower that was about 6 years ago, and he said 60 to 70% of US population writable. 100% readable, 60, 70% writable. That was 6 years ago. And then they started to send Homeland Security to gang stalk those who were not predictable. Because it's known if you are traumatized, you run on a personality level. Personalities are linear structures that are predictable, while heart consciousness is nonlinear and unpredictable. So they send out those trolls from Homeland Security to terrorize innocent people just because they still have a heart. Or the only purpose to make them predictable, to make them programmable.
But why is it that there is so much, there's a war going on? They don't need to have a war if they're in charge already, if they can read us 100% and write us to, as you said in the US, 60 or 70%. Why is it that so many people are waking up and maybe getting themselves out of this illusion, and by waking up being able to see what is being done and what's being done to them? Or what is the cause?
You can see how it works with actually the coronation of the entire project. The last piece of the masterpiece was COVID, designed to separate the divine aspect of a human soul from the body, so that we cannot pick up the signal our soul is sending to us, and to separate the emotional body completely from the physical body. Those are the two steps with the first and second. Whoever has got that, he's basically in complete control. And now look at the intense conflicts that appeared between vaccinated and non-vaccinated people. It is as if a completely different species is evolving that is massively irritated by the characteristics of the original species, goes into complete panic mode, and cannot tolerate us being existent. And when you have like 30% of the population still in a original divine mode, it will create an unsolvable conflict between two societies. And the wake up dynamics is actually, they are developing in a way that many of them now just mentally realize, oops, All my neighbors are dying. All my family members are dying from the same weird symptoms. I feel sick. I feel weak. I'm in fatigue. I have chronic pains in my body. I've got blood under the skin in my legs that I didn't have before, forming blue spots all over the place. Something
Hematoma.
has damaged me. People are not, even if they're completely mentalized, they're not completely stupid. And as long as you have someone connecting the dots, it's a risk.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And this is what I observe at the moment. They had 70%, and now they start losing them either to the grave or to acknowledging truth and
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways back to become human
Mm.
again.
Whoa, that is, you know, when you started out explaining how science and spirituality is two sides of the same coin, that they belong together, that makes sense. I think this is plausible, just like we humans. We can't be human unless our physical body and our spirituality is still intact. Both, we need both. That's how much I have learned over the
Mm.
last 3 years. I never even thought about this, but I think it is plausible and it is rationally, you can confirm it, because there's certain qualities of what I would consider what makes us human that cannot be measured. Like, why do you fall in love with someone? How we're creative and we have intuition. Those are the things that cannot be measured. So, but it's a very important, if not the most important part of what makes us human. That's what I always thought without even thinking this is a problem. I only
Mm.
realized that this is a problem when people like you started to tell me 3 years ago, and then I looked into our history. I looked at people who had done this before. Rudolf Steiner is, of course, one of the most important proponents of this.
Mm.
That's when I realized that maybe there might be some people out there, or maybe not people, maybe just, you know, creatures that think that this is dangerous, that people who have, humans who have both qualities, or all body, mind, and spirit, all three qualities, that they are uncontrollable. And
Mm.
now more than ever, I think that is probably the case. But who feels so threatened by this?
In general, if you look for the common denominator, they're all control freaks. Something went wrong in their childhoods and they got stuck in that control age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not even that much being evil. It's like, I'm good by definition. And if I control everything, everything is good. Yeah, no matter what it looks like when I look at it on the street. Oh, maybe I have to kill 90% of humanity to save nature because I'm good. It's kind of the internal dynamics of a psychopath
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
is not relating to the things he picks up in compassion, because he does not feel himself, so he is incapable of having compassion with the people he is torturing
Mm-hmm.
or killing or
Mm-hmm.
harassing. And there's no conscience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have the divine spark in your heart, kind of the inner heart chakra, it's this tiny little energy center that is the core of your spiritual setup, like the little point where the divine shines into our reality, and then like a
Mm-hmm.
prisma, it's unfolding, building up the chakra system. There's
Mm-hmm.
a core to it, and this can get lost. It's possible to torture it out and capture it somewhere, and then people run without that spark. Those are exactly the people who do not have any conscience, who do not feel what's wrong and what's right. Every other human will always try to orient himself, even if he doesn't have feelings anymore and no compassion. He will act according to an inner moral compass. trying to get it right somehow.
Mhm.
If the spark is gone, there's no wrong or right, there's just pure egoism left. Oh,
Now, this is extremely interesting because I took a deep dive into psychopathy. Because after having done so many interviews, it became very clear to me that much of what we're experiencing is just a grand illusion. I mean, we did take a very close look at um, the plandemic. You can't call this a pandemic; it's a plandemic, in my view.
yeah.
So we wanted to find out how dangerous is the virus. It isn't dangerous, even though they fiddled around with it. At least it's no more dangerous than the common flu. How reliable is the PCR test, and how much damage do the measures do? The measures do extreme damage. According to the estimate of Dr. Roger Hodkinson, who I met only yesterday, there was a Doctors for COVID Ethics meeting, which I was able to, or they honored me by inviting me, and I could give them a presentation of what's going on in my view right now. So, but if you take a closer look at the plandemic, it's a 100% illusion. Nothing is real. If you look at global warming, nothing is real. If you look at geoengineering, yep, I guess that's real to a degree. I don't know how far it goes. You're saying it went pretty far. But in reality, I think much of, much of what we're experiencing is an illusion, and that's created through psychological terrorism. So I wanted to know who is behind this. And obviously, it was specialists, experts at this, psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, who had written the so-called panic papers advising the governments on how to best keep their populations under control by making the children feel responsible for the tortured deaths of their parents and grandparents if they didn't wash their hands, for example. And that's when I wanted to know, who are these people? I had realized, because we had done several interviews on this topic, I had realized that over the last 30 years, through the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders program, most of the people who have come to power on a political level, but also in global corporations, if not all of them, are psychopaths, or else they wouldn't have gotten there. But the same seems to be true in the media, the same seems to be true in science, etc., etc., etc. So at least over the last 30 years, these people have been able, or have been infiltrated into all layers of society. But I wanted to know, where do they come from? You don't become a psychopath because power corrupts you. You are a psychopath. This is what I learned, and that's the only way you can get up there. And after reading these two books, one of them is by, it's a very hard read. It's by a Polish doctor of philosophy, you probably know him, Dr. Andrzej Lobachevsky. The other one is an American criminal psychologist by the name of Dr. Robert Hare. And then there are a number of articles that I read. I spoke to a number of psychologists and psychiatrists. What you just explained makes perfect sense to me, because Lobachevsky and his team, they started out as a big team in the 1960s. They say these people have some kind of brain damage, and that's why they can't, maybe it's heart damage, I don't know. That's why they cannot experience any feelings, any emotions. They have no empathy. They never have any regrets. They lie through their teeth. They lie even when you confront them with the truth. You can't trust them. The only way that they can exist in our society is by pretending to be like us. So what they do, literally, and this is what Hitler did, for example, is they practice in front of a mirror emotions that they think are appropriate under certain conditions. Very strange. What they really are is, they look like humans, but they're not. One of them said they're aliens because they're devoid of any human feelings. And of course, I realize if that is the starting point, that you somehow, because of some kind of brain damage that you either suffer through birth or even before birth or right after birth, you become a psychopath because that spark isn't there anymore, which you were talking about, of course, then it is probably possible to create such aliens by inducing through torture, for example. Mind control comes to mind again, by inducing these same kinds of damages that lead to a perfect psychopath, so that you have exactly that kind of puppet which you need. Is that correct, or is there more to it, Harald?
It's a very interesting point, because you can learn, if you really go through it a couple of times, you can learn about what difference it makes from what perspective you look. If I experience myself as part of this game, and I say, oh, I want to live my quiet life on the countryside, and those psychopaths ruin my planet and kickstart World War III, and my kids in Berlin might be killed by a nuke if the Russians lose their temper, which would be about time, kind of. Then I could basically allow myself to be pulled into duality games, into drama interaction. I would say those people are extremely dangerous. I need to either stop them with violence or cure them with violence, forcefully, or get them out of the power positions with legal measures, or whatever you can get tempted into when you think that becoming part of the big hullabaloo on the screen will change something. When I look at the same thing from the perspective of a psychologist or a healer, not the normal ones, kind of a little bit more advanced knowledge, then I will find that all these conditions are wonderful. Like I could give you an example with a narcissist, kind of the most bashed creature on this planet, the narcissist. Everyone hates the narcissists. And if you look at how a narcissist is created, you will find the beauty in this concept. Now, imagine you're a child and you end up in a situation where your parents do not protect you. Actually, they pose a threat, or are just not protective enough. Can happen in a hospital, like child needs to go to a hospital, parents are not allowed to come in, the doctor looks scary. What needs to happen is the child makes the decision, to survive, I need to grow up now. And then this beautiful, playful thing that centers around the thymus, the thyroid, kind of. It's like a ball structure of a universe where the child plays reality in. It detaches from the child position and moves down 2 chakras, goes to the solar plexus and tries to unify itself with the vital forces, with will, with anger, with fear, with lust, and all the things that are typical for a grown-up, to make sure that he makes his thing in this life. This is kind of an attempted initiation. If the child is not ready, this ends up as a terrible soul loss. The attempt to become adult leads to a soul loss. The adult self is ejected from the body, goes into a form of dream state outside of the body. And then you have an empty sphere, no human inside, that needs to basically survive a couple of years until he's really grown up and can fix things again. And then nature has a beautiful solution. It pulls in an archetype from the collective field. It's instinctive behavior. It pulls in an archetype that needs to fulfill a couple of roles. And this archetype, if you look at him from his qualities, he's Janus-faced. He's got 2 completely different appearances in one character. If a fight impulse is triggered, trauma response pattern, fight, You have the 4Fs: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. They have an order in which they appear in every individual, depending on the childhood. What worked best comes first. So if a fight impulse is triggered, this Janus phase is showing the narcissist. And the duty of the narcissist is basically to mirror himself in the observation of himself through the eyes of the other ones. Because he cannot make a decision. This is who I am, because the I am is out. So he needs to have something reflecting back to him to form a self that meets the needs of the people around him. So he's clicking into his environment in a way that he serves his environment best, with a goal to be liked. And this is the only possibility. It's like if you have a muscle and one cell is dead, and the vacuum that is left is trying to mimic the cells around to be functionable. It's a beautiful concept. And in that way, he acts responsible without being responsible, because he cannot be responsible if your soul is not in. And at the same time, he has the ability to go into a codependency with the other side of the Janus head, which is the people pleaser. The people pleaser is solving the same problem in a different way, because he fawns first. He is adopting to the wish of others. And then it's very easy for him to not be responsible, because he's just copy pasting the will of others into his life. He cannot make a mistake because he just serves. And he goes in codependency with the narcissist to form a hierarchy. So the narcissist picks up the good from his environment and makes the people pleaser follow his ideas. And together they create a lot of pain. The narcissist is torturing the people pleaser, because the people pleaser has no real self. He has a personality that tries to fit in as long as the true self is out. So the narcissist starts to destroy the false self of the people pleaser, to the point where he says, I've got enough and I heal now. I pull in my true self to have something to defend myself against the narcissist. And the narcissist goes into that cycle of trying to be the loved one, but all he is experiencing is being disgraced. So he goes back to his original pain as well, restaging the original trauma, waiting for the moment where he can reinvite his true self and really become an adult that is initiated. So the concept brings healing on both sides, is stabilizing society through hierarchies. Because if you would let those lost children rule the world, or just be part of this world, don't ask me what kind of mess they would create. Yeah? So kind of all those stabilizing moments are absolutely divine, nothing to complain about. If I look at it from that perspective, then take a narcissist and add the loss of the divine spark, and then you have a psychopath or a sociopath. And they really get dangerous to the environment. But take their perspective, go into their internal
void
and reality, which is not what they try to pretend they are, but that go into the deep pain they suffered.
You mean the narcissist, or do you mean the
both?
psychopath?
Also the psychopath. It's even worse. The narcissist is already heavy to be in there, because it's tremendous amounts of pain in that system. If you go into a narcissist, into a psychopath or sociopath, and feel the subconscious part that wants to be restaged, by doing all those crimes. This is kind of the next concept of nature. If you have an injury, if you have a trauma, you create something that is looking for salvation. How can you resolve the issue? You restage the traumatic situation. Give yourself a second chance to go through it without dissociating. The opposite, you go into the situation, you are reminded of the original trauma, which gives you an opportunity to dissolve the trauma and invite back possible soul losses in that moment of mastering the situation. This is the concept of restaging. It's in a way the satanic concept. On the collective plane. And this is also kind of a healing mechanism of nature. If nature wouldn't offer that to us, we would degrade within a couple of generations into nothingness. Like that, we repeat the same bullshit over and over again until we master it. What a beauty. Yeah? Now go again and complain about those people. Getting difficult.
I still complain about those people because I don't, if I can see how from a bird's eye view, this makes sense. If you have enough time and if you yourself decide that you're going to disconnect from your own feelings, because you can't, it is unbearable to see what some of these psychopaths and narcissists, and they're flying monkeys. They have lots of flying monkeys around them. What kind of extreme damage, including torture, physical torture, these people actually do to the environment, to the people. And only if you look at it from a bird's eye view and say, hey, and this is probably why some people say everything's okay, everything's good. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. We have to do something about it. And I don't even think that we have to live with people who are doing such grave damage and wait for them to maybe, but maybe not, heal themselves. I don't think we have to do that. Or maybe, just like we discussed last time, we each of us have a different purpose. The healing purpose is the one that you are talking about. I find that impossible for myself.
No, it's a difference. If someone comes for healing, I completely can delve into that perspective and be non-judgmental at that point, in the sense of I look at the whole being and his history, and I honor the courage that lies in diving so deep down into darkness. You know, for a spirit, this is a huge adventure to dive that deep and then eventually come up again if it works. This is kind of from the complete spiritual perspective or from the healer's perspective. If I meet someone on the street and he's not kind of appointed as a client for a spiritual meeting, then of course, if I am addressed in the wrong way, I would always say, please, not with me. Yeah, if he tries to play tricks on me that I don't need in my life, I would say, not with me. If I need them, I become the codependent. I will suffer from it for a while until I realize, oh, apparently you have been diving into a codependency because there's something to heal in me. And then I heal it in me, and then I stop being codependent, and then I can ignore the ones who try to play that game. This is kind of the healing way for me.
Yeah.
And if someone knocks on my door and says, I would like to play bullshit with you, but I have nothing to learn on that plane, if it happens at all, normally it doesn't even happen after a while, then I can say, not with me, but I will say it in a different tone. I still will say it without judgment. I will just draw my line. I will draw a red line and say, not with me, my dear friend. You know, you want to play games? Find someone who likes to play games. I'm not playing. And you can say that in a deep, loving mode, knowing where these people are. And this works miracles. Yeah, like the funniest thing I ever experienced. When I was young and clueless and lost, I ended up to promise myself to take the next job that will be offered. And I got something in push marketing.
Whoa.
Yeah, pushing products at incredible prices onto people who never wanted them.
And don't
But I
need.
had this stupid promise, and I
Mm.
got warned a couple of times to please not stick to my promise. And I was stupid and young enough to stick to my promise and do that job for a while until I could just puke from morning till evening, and I dropped it again. And then sometime after that, someone called me on the phone, trying to sell me some crap, some insurance, or I don't know what. And I just listened for him for 15 seconds. And then I said, you know, I used to work in push marketing myself. I know how you feel. And he instantly burst into tears and couldn't stop
Wow.
crying. Instantly. And this is the magic of unconditional love. You don't judge. You just go into deep compassion because, you know, we all do the same mistakes at different times. And I've been a psychopath myself in this lifetime and in other lifetimes. I've been a sociopath myself in this lifetime and in other ones. And I was in despair because I was treated as one until I managed to fix myself. Now I meet them, look at them from a different perspective, and I can say, I know where you are. I know what you struggle with. And it gives you a different angle also in being helpful for them to acknowledge their own emotions, of even feelings at the end of the day coming back. And since I'm doing this, I mean, it's really a matter of the inner perspective. I've been fighting with the topic of narcissism for 2 years. Me, myself, coming out of a codependency, thinking I'm the people pleaser until I had to realize that this fucking Janus face was in me as well. And I had my narcissistic ends as well. Not that dominant, but existing. And then I tried to apply that in the healing protocols. And the moment I started to address it in a completely neutral form, not acknowledging the codependent struggle as something between different units, but as a game between one and the same unit for a healing purpose, the healing works within 10-15 minutes. We do weekend seminars. One comes up with a narcissist topic, we solve it, and we have 3-4 people in the audience already crying because they realized that they were sitting on the same pattern. And then the rest is going extremely quick. And if you work on the core pattern of healing the bioenergetics, like you fix a car, condition is solved afterwards. Soul loss needs to be integrated. Trauma needs to be brought into motion, into expression. That's it. Healing is easy.
Well, if you look, let me cite some examples. If I look at Ursula von der Leyen, as far as I'm concerned, 100% psychopath. Söder in Bavaria, 100% psychopath. I keep saying I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a psychologist, but you know, we all have common sense. We are all of us capable of making judgments, and I think we have to make judgments. You can't just say, oh, everything's nice, everything's easy, oh yeah, poor baby, you're suffering, you're being tortured, but that's part of the plan. No, it's not. I just cannot believe this. This is not part of the plan. And these people, who has the time? Who has the time and the patience to help these people? And conventional wisdom says, that's what the psychiatrists and the psychologists say, you cannot help them. They cannot be cured. Even if you're as nice as you can be, even if you're trying to be as helpful as you can be, it is impossible. It's different with almost all other mental problems that people suffer from, depression, for example. That is curable, that's treatable. But conventional wisdom, and I don't see any other side to this, conventional wisdom, scientific or medical wisdom says you can't treat them, you can't heal them. And if that is true, Harald, then those of us who can make a difference have an obligation to step in when they see that grave harm is being done. We can't just sit there and wait until finally they heal themselves or somebody heals them, provided that healing is possible at all. I do believe what you're saying is true to a degree. Yeah,
it is
go ahead.
possible. The problem is they don't volunteer for the healing, and you need their participation. They need to come and say, I need healing. And then everything is possible if they go with it. It needs someone to accompany the process, to know in what steps things need to be fixed. But I see that on daily basis happening and working with the worst conditions you can think about. We do deprogramming of ritual abuse, 90 minutes, done. Completely done with it. It's possible if you know how to do it. And the problem is most of the people don't volunteer for that, or they don't even know that the possibility exists. They don't even know that they have a problem, because erasing the memory is part of the programming.
Isn't that the reason why we're in this situation? Because those who, if they volunteered, according to your theory, they can be helped, but they don't volunteer because it's so much easier for them to keep on doing what they're doing, even though, well, I have no idea what they feel. But if you look at them, they're not happy people. That is very obvious. The two I mentioned, they're not happy people. They must be completely empty. But
but look at it like that. Widen the perspective. Everything comes at the right time. There is a phase where they don't volunteer, and at a certain point they volunteer. This is within every storyline of a karmic cycle. You go through those phases. And who am I to decide at what point of his story someone needs to be in this moment? You know, when I had my really weird lifetimes where I did all that dark stuff, it was about time to do it because it was part of my karmic cycle. And I would say, yes, if someone would have stopped me with a hammer or a knife, maybe I would have been happy as a soul, kind of to not accumulate even more perpetrator trauma. So yes, if you would have stopped me, killed me, put me in prison for what I've done, I would have been fine with that in a way as a soul. But it was my choice to say, I'm waking up now. When I had enough of diving down, when I came to my low, like with an alcoholic, you know, you can try to stop an alcoholic for 15 years and he's going to start drinking over and over and over again. And when he reaches his lowest point, kind of the dark night of his soul, he can turn around. And this is a process every single soul is going through, looking for that dark night of the soul where a turnaround is possible. And yes, I can assist people. I can trigger them and ask them, don't you think today is the day? If they say no, it's no. None of my business from there on. You don't volunteer, I don't push you.
Well, remember the German entertainer and actor Harald Juncker? He obviously missed the right time.
This is what
So
people do. Sometimes death is healing.
yeah, and then maybe they get another chance through a new incarnation, I suppose. That's from the bird's eye view. That's that kind of perspective. But aren't we in the situation that we're in because these people are running the show? And isn't this battle, which at least I perceive as a battle and as a war, many others do too, isn't this an immediate result of these people just wanting to keep on going and not wanting to be human? I mean, transhumanism is all about leaving humanity behind. Trans means we're in a transition period, so ultimately
Mm,
there is no humanity anymore. There are no human qualities anymore. So these people, if that is their goal, have
mm,
explicitly said we want to destroy everything. And they're going much further than just destroying us as humans. They want to destroy creation. They want to destroy everything.
mm,
And if we don't stop them, then they will do it. Or a higher power will step in. I think those are the two choices we have. Either we wake up and decide this is it, or someone or something, spirituality kicks in, the universe
mm,
kicks in, and they're going to make the difference, which is probably
mm.
something that most of us will not survive.
Um, I am aware that we used to live in that threat. I can, if you feel like, exactly tell you where it came from
Yeah,
to
the
give you an,
cataclysmic events that are usually, if this is true, I mean, we know that we've been
mm,
lied to about our history as well, but there have been cataclysmic events. The country or continent of Atlantis
mm,
disappeared because of one of these events. So that's what I'm saying. We have a choice. We can either step
mm,
up, rise, and stop it, or if we don't do
mm,
anything, or not enough of us wake up and do something
mm,
about it, then these cataclysmic events, which is, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really understand it, but which is a manifestation of this higher
mm,
power
mm,
that can step in and do the healing for us.
mm. Um, if I completely widen the picture, I mean, this
Hmm.
is a little bit beyond science. So this is coming from spiritual awareness and processes observed in the collective. Um, at the moment, we are going through a phase of splitting timelines. It's
Hmm.
like 4D cell division.
Hmm.
Gaia is multiplying itself because she can't serve everyone living on her at the same time. When you have knackards and beautiful, wise people and loving people, they don't fit into one reality. So it needs a cell division process to create two Gaias in two different timelines where one can go transhumanist and the other ones go divine.
That's the two worlds that we were speaking about last time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Hmm.
and when you have a perception of those densities, a density is a pre-stage to a timeline.
Hmm.
You can experience in the astral. Um, I'm surrounded by people who can travel those worlds, so we have quite a good intersubjective picture of what has happened in those realms. Um, what actually happened more than a year ago was that the third density with the pure um, baby souls that had zero experience and wanted to fall into every single trap offered, that they split off and went into completely transhumanist future with World War III starting in February 2022.
Hmm.
And they destroyed the planet in future. They will have destroyed the planet, will have been forced to leave, but completely degenerated from vaccines and radiation damage, turning into what we know today as the big white gray.
Hmm.
It's us from the future. And they ended up as a species that was seeding total destruction to hundreds and thousands of worlds that they geoengineered and at the end destroyed. And their kind of hive mind, the computer program running all the avatars, which
Hmm.
is in a way one of the future versions, or was one of the future versions of Satan.
Hmm.
He realized how much destruction he was causing. He realized that he is uncurable. that nothing will ever bring him back to holiness. And he grabbed an opportunity technologically to travel back into the time before the timeline split, to make sure that humanity goes extinct before this happens. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted to delete himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm uncurable, I'm infectious, I'd better kill myself before I destroy everything. This
Or,
is it's an act of pure love, if you look from his perspective. And this is kind of, it was the driving force behind politics that wanted to completely destroy this planet. And this timeline has been deleted.
uh-huh.
Kind of August, September last year, things in the spiritual realm happened, and it was possible to detach this thing as a loop. And there was one big prayer of all the entities involved in that loop that said, please delete us from existence. And since then, from our perspective, nobody is capable of reaching out to that density anymore. It's gone, it's disappeared. And with it, that version of satanic consciousness that was playing the total destruction card is gone as well. So then we have kind of another timeline from the future with a small gray grays that still look for their own healing. They abduct, they make genetic experiments with humans to find the missing piece that got lost in their future, so that they degraded to a point of being injured souls being captured in biocomputers, which is extremely painful for the soul bit. And they were looking for ways to back engineer more human qualities into their race. They got helped. They are not that desperate anymore. So if I look kind of at the total picture, the core things are solved. The problem with humanity is that everyone that is mentalized to a degree has a mindset that has the physics of an echo, because the mind is not creative, it's not productive, it just overlays echoes to be able to reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why all those people who have lost the heart connections are still echoing on those self-destructive programs,
Mm-hmm.
and don't realize that the driving force behind them is already gone long time. And this is complicated to communicate. How can you tell to Ursula von der Leyen that she's riding a horse that is dead? You know, the Red Indians had an easy saying: if you realize that the horse you're riding is dead, step down. But she's not stepping down. The other ones are not stepping down because the alternative to continuing is total defeat, shame. And they don't feel like going for that because it would mean to learn to feel again. It's the first feeling becoming accessible again for them is shame. Oh God, what have I done? And it's not an easy step to take. And after the shame, the pain will kick in. And then healing takes its path. And wow, I mean, if they go through that, if they live through that, I can just honor those spirits for what they have taken on them as a journey. It's immense.
What about us? I understand there's this one timeline that seems to have been split off of us.
Mm.
There's another timeline or world where you still have people like her and others who
Yeah.
may be trying to come back, or who are subconsciously, I suppose, is the best
It's
way to phrase it, trying to get back into humanity, be accepted by humanity again. I don't know how to phrase it
mm.
better. But there's also us, those who are in the
Yeah.
resistance, who are
We
fighting.
careful. Be careful with the fighting bit. It's because it binds you to the drama. And binding you to their drama means that you will end up on their timeline. That's kind of a little bit risky to run it that way, because timelines have split again. For a while it was all merging together again, opening all possible outcomes. Entire humanity ascending was one option, but it didn't work out. Too many unexperienced souls were still in that said, no, we need to play more drama to find ourselves. We need to finish our karmic cycles. So we need a little bit more drama triangle interaction for a while. So we can't ascend into unity consciousness yet. So there's a new split between unity consciousness, sixth density, and fourth and fifth density that form that drama triangle interaction. And we are departing at the moment. It's in the process of splitting up. And as far as I got it, the lower timeline with fourth, fifth density will have most of the people being in a complete control mode for a while, which is good because they are supposed not to self-destroy. So it's for them, it's like sitting in a cinema watching an adventurous movie, but they can't make decisions on what's happening. Yeah, because they just are seated and they have to watch. This is the biorobot state. You go through an adventure that is extremely intense. You learn your lessons, but you're not making decisions because it is decided for you from an AI that is controlling a hive mind. Yeah. So they will be pulled through an adventure accompanied by some that are actually acting on a real free will, playing the counterpart to it, but staying in drama interaction. And then there are a number of humans that are beyond drama interaction, that have that standpoint of unity consciousness, and they depart into their own timeline. This is, even in the biblical context, you have those predictions that the righteous people will, from one to another moment, disappear from the plane of reality. This is kind of this ascending of the sixth density.
So that's the
And
separation of the different worlds that we have. That's what you said last time. We can still see them and to a certain degree still communicate with them, but as far as my experience goes, with those who, not all of them, but some of who have received the shots, the third and the fourth shot, you can talk to them about the weather, but nothing much else.
yeah, it's like we see the projection of them onto the material plane, but we can't interact with their spirit. Whatever we say, it doesn't make a difference. They are not listening. They're not there. In our perception, they're simply not there. And possibly if you search for the anchor point of their souls in the lower densities, possibly we are not there. If they look at us, they will see soulless beings. And for us, they exist only as a material projection on the screen, but not as an independent focal perspective, which is this soul quality. A soul is a point from where an aspect of the divine looks into the material plane. This is what you see when you look into the eyes. When you dive into the eyes, you look into the divine directly.
Yes, I can see that. 1 second, Dagmar. I think I understand that, because one of the most important things that we are dealing with, we meaning this group of international attorneys who a year and a half ago conducted this model grand jury proceeding. Dexter and I, my friend Dexter, he's a South African attorney. We seem to have a lot in common, it turns out. Both our fathers were police officers. And he and I have been working on this Maori project for half a year now. Spent a lot of time and energy. There's 3 problems that we're dealing with. Problem number 1 is, do they really have sovereignty? No problem, because if you look at all the documents, if you talk to the people, one of us is a legal scholar, but also has a PhD in history. She looked at it and says, no problem. Of course there's sovereignty. The other side tries to make us doubt this, but there can be no doubt at all. Second problem is, enforceability of decisions that come from this judiciary, if you want to call it that, that's not a problem either, because their judiciary is much more than what we perceive as a judicial system, a courthouse, judges, prosecutors, lawyers. It's a way of life. And it's about all these virtues that many of us in the West seem to have lost. That's why when we did this, Dexter and I and three Maori did a presentation for, I don't know, dozens of people in a Zoom conference that was conducted by CHD, Children's Health Defense. That's why what the Maori said when they talked about integrity, honesty, courage, these kinds of things, that really touched them, all of them, even those, you know, very rational scientists, doctors, and lawyers. It really touched them because it reminded them of something. And so that's not a problem either, because if these values are the real platform on which whatever we do there stands, then enforceability is not going to be a problem. The real problem is unity. The real problem is unity, because all the different hapus, which is the all those tribes, I guess you can say, who are totally independent, which are exactly where we want to be, independent, small, self-sufficient, self-regulating societies that are totally disconnected from these global corporations, global NGOs, which have their own supply chain for food, which produce their own energy, maybe free energy, we don't know. But the problem is that that Mr. Global, if you want to call him that, Mr. Global's divide and conquer strategy has worked very well amongst them as well. So it's going to be very hard to unite them. That's what we've been working on. Plus, some of them seem to have sold out to what they call the corporate government. Some of them have, some of the tribal leaders, the chiefs, have made their hapus take the injections. They can't even participate in the legal endeavor that Dexter and I and the others want to do, because they're gonna have to stand trial, so to speak. So unity is the real problem. Unity is the real problem. And if that's what we're talking about, that's also what you have been talking about, then their idea of justice is to they say to restore peace for the world, not just for the Maori, but for the world, because this is what their prophecies, I don't know, they're 50 years old, maybe older, but this is what their prophecies have said. There will be a time when you will restore the peace for the world, but you have to get unity first, not 100%, but maybe 30%, maybe 40%, maybe less, I don't know. Unity. Ultimately, it is not going to be, I've said this over and over again, it's not going to be the courts of law that will put an end to this. It is us, the people, the real humans, who will do that. And that can only be achieved through unity. But on the other hand, and that's where we probably differ, you, Harald, and I. On the other hand, I think, and I think they think too, that there cannot be peace without justice. There cannot be peace without justice. From a broader perspective, the way that you look at it, it's different. You have to just let things go, and then ultimately everything will fall into place by itself, or because of this higher power, the universe, righting the wrongs. I think that's the only difference. Or maybe not. Or maybe there's this old saying that says, God helps those who help themselves. Maybe it's both. We have to do something, and that's when the higher power will step in. I think it requires both, Harald.
I'm not sure if a higher power steps in a visible form. The higher power steps in 24/7.
Yeah.
Within the spirits, coming as inspiration, coming as reminders to follow their own soul plan. This is how it's expressing itself from my view.
Mm-hmm.
Like just thinking about the way I perform. I have no clue why, but I need to do something, and I work my ass off for 2 years doing something completely ridiculous, without knowing what for, just knowing that I have to do it. After 2 years, finally, I find out why
Mm-hmm.
and what for, and then I'm happy that I listened to that inner voice. Because if I wouldn't have listened to it, then things would have gone completely in the wrong direction. And I can see
Mm-hmm.
the pattern only after I served, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of my way to deal with it. And I feel extremely responsible for my own performance related to my inner wisdom and the inner guidance I receive. This brings me to my responsibility. I don't feel the necessity to control the overall picture, because I know that there are many like me that are embedded within reality and do their
Mm-hmm.
thing, and the right miracle happens at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
as I have seen my miracles happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so really tempted to share some of the stories, but I'm not allowed to. Uh, so this is a matter of how much do I trust the universe
Yeah.
to find its way to healing. Am
Yeah.
I responsible to control the whole picture? No, I'm not.
No, but we should each of us do our part.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, I completely rely on you as you rely on me. Me
Yeah.
doing my part, you doing yours. And with this entire Maori story, I can feel that. I can feel um, the karmic, um, the drive coming from the universal will
Good.
to express itself in that
Mm-hmm.
story. It feels absolutely divine. Whatever comes out, even if it's just a learning process for the
Mm-hmm.
Maori to reunite their tribes, because
Mm-hmm.
they have something to realize that unity is necessary.
Yeah.
And that unity is more important than admitting a mistake or not admitting a mistake.
And it's necessary for all of us. Ultimately, we all
Yeah.
of us know that. Dagmar, she has had her hand up.
Yeah, I have a question, Harald, to the timelines, because I was always wondering whether these timelines exist already also in the 3D reality, because actually, I mean, I'm lived now quite a few decades, but with certain spheres of reality, I never came in contact. So if there would not have been mass media, I would not even know that military exists. I never met any military man, yeah? And millions of people, that's their main topic in life, yeah? That's not few. It's quite a lot of people. They're only dealing with military. I never met any military personally in my life. And I wonder, and this is with many areas, whether these timelines already exist in this three-dimensional sphere too.
Okay. I can give you kind of a sketch of the total setup we are experiencing, because it's different than we would expect. It's not that the material plane is primary producing consciousness. It's the other way around. We have extremely highly complex consciousness. This is an 8D pattern, 8-dimensional consciousness realm without any material aspect to it in the basis. And then basically this can be reduced to 4D crosscuts. Every 4D crosscut is one universe. The 8D is a multiverse. It's much more complex than what we can see with our eyes. There are things in it that are completely inaccessible from our perspective. So the 4D is something else. This is something we can deal with our consciousness. And these 4D consciousness realms, still without material plane, if you take a perspective and project them onto a 3D realm, then you get what we have, which is a pair of eyes creating the perspective, projecting something that is a spiritual experience into the creation of a 3D material plane. And this is as complex and real as a dream. A dream is kind of the same. When we dream, we are in that 4D crystal, taking all sorts of perspectives. We have much more possibilities to travel around, have harsh cuts in between the pictures, and we dream reality. The problem is we hardly ever share those dreams with others. A material plane starts to come into existence if many single perspectives interact on the basis of a collective consciousness structure. So the collective consciousness structure is like an AI that tries to synchronize and harmonize individual dreams to create something that most of the people can agree on as this is our reality, but it's just a mutual agreement. And it's never identical. Nobody else lived my life. Nobody else lived your life. This perspective is unique. My perspective is unique. If you've ever been to Berlin, we can discuss what we saw there. And we will find kind of a common denominator that we can accept as a reality. But it's kind of a process of calculations done by that hive mind, trying to give us a coherent experience. And it doesn't always work. If it doesn't work, what we experience are those Mandela effects. Yeah, kind of that was the first one that became famous. Did Nelson Mandela die in jail, or did he become president of South Africa? I heard a beautiful other one, because I really had to laugh my head off when I heard that one. If you look one of the old James Bond films with this kind of criminal that had those metal teeth.
Yeah.
You remember the little girl he fell in love with? It was a woman. He was like 2'20" and the woman was extremely small and really looked a little bit stupid all the time. And this biter, he fell in love with her at the end. And as far as I remember, she was wearing
Braces.
braces. If you look at the movie today, she doesn't.
Huh.
Beautiful Mandela effect. It's
Can
gone.
you explain that Mandela effect? Because I've heard it over and over again. What does it really mean? Is it that some people believe that he became president and others believe he died?
No, it means that we have two different systems of recording past. One is the running calculation of the past that is actually changing in the same way as the future is unpredictable. This is a function of pure physics, that in the collective realm, you have basically you have a recursive recreation of a now. A now is a now and a now and a now and a now. And from the now, field structures run into the future and field structures run into the past. And they interact with the future and they interact with the past and send back wave patterns from the changed future and the changed past, creating the new now. This is kind of recursive time in a way, is the recursive programming line that is creating kind of a line of nows by being in a loop with futures and pasts that adopt accordingly. This is kind of one structure where you create a certain past by creating new nows. Past is changing. And then we have the individual memory. So if I remember that Nelson Mandela died in jail, which I do, I was in Israel at that age, and it was a big news that he died in jail. And that was my personal memory, because back then, when I lived back then, this was the actual present becoming an actual past. Now a thing has happened, and the new now is demanded a different past. So the collective created a past where he became president. And now my memory collides with a new reality of a new past of the collective. And this is a Mandela effect. And the more you play around with departing timelines, the more difficult it gets for the universe to calculate coherent pictures. This is kind of where the Mandela effect comes. And the past is not set in stone. The past is as undefined as the future. Not my personal memory. This is recorded in the crystals of my skull. I will be sitting on that memory till I die. Yeah. But then it's going to be deleted. Doesn't play a role. My emotional memory goes with me when I die. This is something that is never going to be deleted. And you can see that even if you look into real hard science, like there's one thing with the human throat that you have crossing pipes where the air goes down and the food goes down. They are crossed, which is a characteristic that enables us to speak. And it's only there for that purpose, being capable of speaking. And if you now look back into our history, you find that trilobites, those little crabs 800 million years ago, we evolved from, according to Darwin, and they already have crossing pipes. As a crab that never talks. You know, and the geologists have been wondering, how can nature be so wise and so intelligent to start working on a physical property that will be needed only 800 million years later to develop it in early stages of a species, to forward it into other developments, to have it at place when we need to record our Zoom call. Completely unlogical. It's directed evolution. If you understand quantum physics and scalar physics, and you see the wave patterns traveling from the perfect form back into the past to lay the template for the evolution of the perfect form, it's easy to understand.
But it's not directed evolution in the sense that this crazy person, Yuval Harari, imagines it, right? It's directed evolution as, you mean, directed by
in the divine.
Yeah.
In the source field. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's important, because we don't want to confuse this with that idiot.
I really would love to have a public discussion with Yuval Harari and the other one. What's his name? Head of development at Google.
Oh, Ray Kurzweil.
Ray Kurzweil and Yuval Harari and me in one public discussion. That would be fun.
That would be great, yeah.
They will, you know what? They will never agree to this, just like the mainstream media will never agree to have a talk show with us being present. They need their puppets to not have to think.
I know, but it still would be fun.
Yeah, that it would be.
Maybe they listen to what we do as we listen to what they do, and maybe they can grab that invitation for later.
Yeah. When the
Because I
time
love
comes.
them. They are honest, you know. These are my best buddies because they one-to-one say what they mean, say what they want. Ray Kurzweil says we're going to, when we're done with this planet, we're going to send our nanotechnology out to the universe, or those nanobots, to harvest more energy and matter. This is a perfect description of transhumanism, conquering those 3D realms that exist as a projection of a collective consciousness. You can, if you capture the consciousness, you capture the material plane and get power over it. This is what he calls harvesting energy and matter.
Where does he come from, Harald?
Ray Kurzweil, I think
He's the same age as me, you know, I know, also 48. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think he's British.
I mean, no, I mean, not physical, not from the 3D reality, from
his soul.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's just another psychopath. I'm pretty sure he's one of those people who will have to take themselves out of the game if they have any spark left in them. And if they don't take themselves out of the game, then the universe will.
But he started with developing tools for helping, I think, deaf people to hear, and so he started in the science, you know. Like, that's what I was reading from his biography.
Yeah, and probably he went technological with the attempt to replace biology, and then he got hooked by the idea to replace everything.
Very strange. I think it's so absolutely strange that anyone would ever veer off from real reality, which is nature and the universe, into thinking that they can play God ultimately. That has never gone unpunished. Again, we're talking about justice. This has never gone unpunished.
Mm.
And on the other hand, I was reading that he takes immense amount of pills every day, you know, of vitamin pills to not die too early.
Yeah, those people, they stick to life.
Yeah.
This is the main problem, you know. If you reduce the main problem of humanity to one sentence, is people are afraid of death. This is what they think, but actually they're afraid of life.
Yeah.
Because it's one and the same. And because they can't see that it's one and the same, they try to avoid dying, and then they avoid living, and then everything goes down the hill.
Yeah.
Kissinger is 100 already, you know, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, there's darker stuff involved, much darker stuff. We know that. Okay. Well, have we come to a conclusion? I think we have, sort of, right? We do see the light at the end of the tunnel. We see the world separating. We see the timeline separating.